I could go home and draw. Actually, I didn't take this photograph, but I could go home and draw, and then the dancers could see that I'd taken photographs of them and drawn them, and they really liked that. I think they quite liked the novelty of having somebody in there and draw them.
It's an interesting sequence of collaborations, isn't it? You've got a pianist for music, you've got you drawing, and then you've got the structure of it is all a collaboration as well, isn't it? Because it's the text and the choreography.
Yeah, because when I went to the dress rehearsals, the guy who wrote Ian Kelly, who wrote the book Casanova, he came in as well to the rehearsals, and he collaborated with Kenneth Tyndall, the choreographer, to put the ballet together, so an author. And then I was looking recently about artists that have painted dancers, and of course I found this YouTube on Picasso, because he worked for about 8 years with the ballet Diaghilev, the Russian ballet, and there was a lot of collaboration went on then between artists and painters and musicians and the different disciplines. Whereas, I mean, from my experience, like just from the last 6 years, painters kind of go in their own little place and paint and don't collaborate with other people. And I mean, I suppose that's the difference going to the ballet, is that there's like loads of people all collaborating and working together to create a production, and you just go in as a single person, as an artist. And I think that's the way painters have always kind of operated. But it was nice to be around other creatives, and that was part of the purpose, really, to do that. Does anybody want to ask anything? Because I hate it when everybody sat there. I don't really want to say anything.
Shout out. No problem.
I know David will.
Just on the portrait artist, who was your sitter?
My sitter was Ali Ashton. She's an actress from Fresh Meat. She played Buzz in Fresh Meat on Channel 4. And
she's a great show, and she's beautiful.
She's been in Handmaid's Tale, and before this show they ask you ideally who you would like to paint, if you've got a choice. And I said, well, if I'm painting somebody for 4 hours, I want somebody who's easy on the eye and has got good bone structure and a nice fashion sense. And she just ticked all the boxes. She was just, she's beautiful, and she had a gorgeous dress on from Vampire's Wife, really nice dress, and so she was lovely, and actually she chose my painting, which made it really even nicer to me. But and she stayed in touch since and commissioned me to do some work as well.
She's in
she's in Handmaid's Tale, I think.
Yeah,
I think she's in the Marvel films now as well.
Yeah, and there's a film called Velvet Buzzsaw, and she's in that. It's like a parody of the art world.
Right. Yeah.
So she clearly has an interest
yes.
in art, because she plays like a curator.
Yeah, she does. Because over lockdown, she asked me if I'd do some art classes with her over Zoom, which we didn't actually do because she went off to Canada to do some filming. But she has got an interest. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess.
What is people's background anyway? Are any painters here, or are you doing an art course or?
At the moment, I did the extended diploma in art and design at the college, College of Art, uni, whatever it's called now.
Yes, yeah.
But I did the fine art pathway there.
Right, yeah.
I enjoyed mixed media thinking.
And are you still doing that, or have you gone into some other work?
I do both. Visual art still. I've got a studio at Airplay Studios.
Oh, right.
And I also am a carnival arts producer.
Oh, fantastic.
Different kind of art.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. Interesting.
Whereabouts is your studio?
My studio is at Patrick Studios.
All right.
At East Street Arts, which is just up at Margate, so it's only 5 minutes walk from here, which is brilliant.
Yep.
And I've just been there just over a year. Yeah.
Picture of the studio.
Picture of the studio? Oh yeah.
Somewhere. Scroll through all languages.
I did have a studio, and then when we sold our house, I got rid of it, and this was in my studio in my garden. And before that, it was in the bedroom of the house we had. And I used to change my kids' nappies on here.
And this is how we met first, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how we first met.
It's all happenstance.
Nothing to do with the nappies.
No. Okay, well, yes, no. This needs to load.
Yeah, it's got a really high ceiling, which is brilliant. It's my last studio I had in the garden. I just had an apex, and when I got my wind-up easel, it would only go in one part of the studio. So I love that it's got a high ceiling now, and I'm in with other people as well. Whereas before, when I had a studio in my garden, I was isolated, and I really like being in a place with other people. There's a real sense of community. And Leeds Print Workshop is in the basement. And one of the reasons initially I joined Leeds Print Workshop, A, to do some printmaking, but B, because I knew that printmakers have more of a community than artists often do. And yeah.
I think when you first showed him the old space in the market, you were just starting to plan your monoprint classes for teaching, I remember.
Yeah, so I've got I've got a new monoprint and portrait painting class that starts at the end of this month for 5 mornings on a Thursday, and it will be different because usually I've been doing the monoprints, and this one's got colour mixing as well, so it's painting on canvas as well.
Oh wow, fantastic. Oh,
Yeah.
Shout about that.
I know.
And recommend some paint.
Yeah. Right, that's what we do.
Oh yeah,
next
well I guess
then.
the next question is about the different media, so from the iPad drawings to the oil paint and the monoprints, and I get, it's always interests me sort of the relationship between the two. I guess you sort of talked about the transition from the Procreate iPad drawings to the paintings, but just how they relate together, and I guess there's a natural affinity with big oil paintings to be the main thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I find the monoprints beautiful. I guess because of the immediacy of stroke, and then the directness of the iPad drawings to the rehearsals really appeals to me. So yeah, I guess in the long-winded questions, would you see that maybe printing off larger versions of the iPad drawings, or progressing the different media in a different way, so that the emphasis is different?
Yeah. Well, the iPad drawings, I do love working on the iPad, and I love the way that it's almost like sort of painting on a sunny day, because you've got that backlight all the time, and I like the way that it can suggest to me light, and so I do like the iPad drawings, and I do often use it as a starting point and thinking through composition and colour. I do think that they are quite nice in themselves, but I didn't think they all worked. I liked the ones that were like of the rain, that were more like a sort of a Japanese and a flat style, whereas I thought a lot of the ones that were really bright harked back to like his sort of pop art origins, and they were almost like, dare I say, advertising. Placards, because quoting Hockney again as well, is that one of the things about a work of art that's different from photography is that you can see the element of time in it, because you can see the mark making and if you stand before it, you know that it's taken the artist a while to put the paint on, to make those marks, and so it's got a sense of history and time to it that photography that's taken in one shot like that doesn't have. And
they're objects, aren't they?
They're objects, yeah, and I think people like to see the physical marks, whereas you don't get that obviously on an iPad printout. On the other hand, I think the smaller, I've done them up to about A1 size, and I think if you're doing them for like a commission, it is still an individual drawing that you're doing for somebody, and so it's still special in that respect. And I think you can still see the quality of the marks. So I'm not sure I would go in for big. I like them when they're backlit, like at Salts Mill, and they're on a screen, because I think that's the beauty of iPad, isn't it? The light.
Little bit stained glass-esque, isn't it? Really
yeah, and there's some really good iPad drawers on Instagram as well.
Yeah, and it's all very impressive, isn't it? The NFTs and there's lots more sort of experimentation with what is original and digital art. It's a rich thing.
But the monoprints, I think like most of them probably are more portraits, whereas I suppose the aim was to do figures in motion. So I would say the Great Gatsby one over there with the two men, that's more like the paintings in that it's figures in motion, whereas the other ones are probably more, my monoprint portraits, which are quite structured in some ways. But, obviously with monoprint you don't have to think about colour.
So I guess the next question is this link between, because you're painting the ballet, Northern Ballet, and also Casanova, historical figure. I guess it's how you feel about this. There's such a weight to the subject matter, and then there's such a weight to the history of painting. It's that it's the tradition of painting, the tradition of ballet. How do you feel like those two heavy traditions?
I did think about it quite a bit actually, because I thought. Whenever you start painting, you're working in a tradition, and I think that doing a fine art degree really brought that home to me, that it made me aware, obviously, of the tradition that's gone before me and all the artists who have set the bar, really. And so, it's no good just... If you're trying to do something that's got any kind of weight, you've got to be conscious and aware of that tradition that you're working within. And it's the same, isn't it, in dance and ballet, they're working in a tradition of what's gone before. So I think there's similarities in that, and also, the non-verbal thing. I remember, David, you saying that you just taken your kids to see the ballet the first time I met you, and you said I had to, I think, explain to your grandson.
The 3-year-old.
Your cousin, and she said that the first time she went to the ballet, she was like, why is there no words, And I really like that they're similar in that respect, in that painting, obviously doesn't have any words verbally, and ballet doesn't, and words have got a limitation, haven't they, and so it's like digging deeper to try and communicate in a different way, which I don't think people don't always appreciate, the fact
No.
there's a non-verbal element to it, and You know, I mean, even the city of Leeds, dare I say it, I'm from Leeds, but to me it doesn't have a big tradition in the visual arts. It's got a tradition in music, with the piano concerts, and I mean, I've lived away quite a bit, but I mean, even now I'm excited that there's this gallery here in the Corn Exchange, and David, you're opening a sculpture gallery in the next week or so, the sculpture gallery.
Yeah.
And it's just great that there's this place here that is giving the opportunity for real, you know, local artists, and what I'd say real artists rather than just celebrity names. Some of the galleries are going in Leeds that are just, you know, they're selling paintings. I mean, I did go and look at the Bob Dylan, and he's a good artist, but he's got a name, hasn't he? And a lot of the artists in there, they've got names, and people will go in and buy the art because they've got a name, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite exciting that there's this gallery and another gallery shortly opening, and hopefully, you know, there'll be more of a platform in this great city of Leeds to have some vibrant art.
Yeah, more spaces and more people collaborating and showing.
Yeah.
Good. I mean,
Sorry.
yeah,
Got on my pedestal
no,
there.
Just got Airplay Studios.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, you know, I haven't visited Airplay Studios, and I'm still a bit isolated, but anyway.
No. I concur. This is exactly why we put on these shows and do these things, isn't it? Try and get the work out there, right?
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so this next question on the tradition thing is if you could talk a bit about some of the artists that from that tradition that inspire you. You know,
Keep on. So all these paintings, like when I was doing them, you know, the artists of the past, or even ones on Instagram, are like my mentors, really. You know, I went to see the Jennifer Packer in the Serpentine Gallery in the summer. So I don't know if you can see it, but Jennifer Packer works with these very bright, luminous colours sometimes on her canvases. And one of my other targets, as well as doing the full figures, was to try and move away from using a grey ground and use a coloured ground. So I was quite inspired by Jennifer Packer for this one, because it's got I started with a really bright orange and pink and yellow ground, and I just painted it quite loosely before I put detail on it. So that was influenced by Jennifer Packer. And then the one at the end of the principal soloist, Hannah Bateman, that was influenced by no, not this. It was influenced by Keith Vaughan, believe it or not, and also the dance troupe up here. And he's not alive now, Keith Vaughan, but a fantastic British painter, and he always deals with problems of the figure in a space, in a ground. So I did that painting of Hannah from a photograph on Instagram. And then, of course, you don't know what the real space is that she's inhabiting. And make this look like she's in some kind of a 3D space. And do I want to make it look as if she's in 3D space, or do I want to make it look flat? As a lot of contemporary artwork is flat. And then you've got to think about the colours. It's quite pastel colours, and these ones are not. And in the end, I've put her in some kind of a landscape, abstract landscape, which is what Keith Vaughan does. He often put a lot of his figures into landscapes, and often they're quite abstracted shapes, his landscapes. So I just did that, I just made abstract shapes.
So there's formulist considerations, which colours work next to which other colours, and which shapes work with the figure.
I haven't got that one completely sorted, but I was quite happy with it. Goes with the flooring here. Harmonious. And then that one there, I started that one as an iPad drawing on Procreate again, and the great thing about iPad is you can just bring up the screen, flood it with a blue colour, and then start drawing on it in these bright pinks and things. And instantly, you know, it's exciting. And then, how do you bring that excitement then when you start doing it in paint? Because you want to keep that same vibrancy, and it's a completely different medium. So you want to keep the marks exciting as it is on the iPad. And you know, I do quite like strong colours, I must admit. So that is
superb.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's quite.
You can hear the feet on the floor.
Oh, that one's over there as well, because that one's Rambert Valley, which is a contemporary dance company in London. And I did go down and do some drawings from their workshop, where you can go in and you can draw and work in there. They have about once a month. It's called Playground, and they have a lot of student dancers in there, but they have musicians and all sorts go in and work. I think that one's called Killer Pig, but I just thought it was such a fantastic image. I had to nick that one. But it started off in quite a structured way as well, because you can see with the charcoal lines, I've actually gridded it, because I wanted to get the proportions right, which is something that I never used to do that as when I was working from life. And actually somebody said, oh, that's quite like dance, isn't it? Because they're quite disciplined, and you know, they have certain, like when you went into the Grand Theatre, they had certain marks that they had to stand on and things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice link to constructing a painting and constructing the moves.
Yeah. And then, and this one is, the artist I was inspired by here was one that I found on Instagram called Linda Christensen. And she works in layers, so she builds all her work up in a lot of layers, and she uses quite bright colours, and it becomes quite gestural and abstract hers. And I really liked this image with the bright blue, and often her images are people by the coastline or the coast or something like that, and it's quite Matisse with all those blues in. And so stupidly I thought, oh right, I'm going to paint this in blue and yellow, those colours. So underneath that you can see this kind of the turquoise and the yellow, and then I thought, oh, I've lost it now. I've just gone over it in all this blue and yellow, and I've completely lost this painting. And then I worked on top of it again, and I quite liked those bright colours coming through, and it seemed to loosen it up. And also, after being in the ballet as well and watching them, it kind of helped me to see how they danced as like one person. They were like, you know, they were so connected, they danced as one. And I think, even though I didn't really know what was going on her back and on his sleeve and how they connected, I think the marks I put there tried to show that they're connected as one. And so it actually came together then after thinking, oh no, I've ruined it with putting bright colours on. Or maybe it was just the pressure of having a show, and then my painting was still wet when I brought it in.
That's the best way.
That is the best way sometimes. It just has something to, I mean, obviously being able to put your paintings at a resolution, and then actually being able to sell them as well is the completion of it, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about this one. What the well, there are some people on Instagram that I look at that work in quite bright colours on dark backgrounds, and it all sort of subconsciously feeds in, doesn't it, when you're working, when you keep looking at other artists. And you know, I think that's important to look at, as I say, at the benchmark, and look at good quality artwork, and that's what we're trying to hit, isn't it, when you paint.
Figure out what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, trying to get a good painting and a good composition, you know. And sometimes it's not like drawing it to grid like that one. Sometimes like this one, although I did paint that twice, so I probably knew where the figures were going to go. But I just started with the colour on that one, not the drawing. So So that's the artists really that have influenced me for those ones.
That's great.
I think we've only got one more question, haven't we?
Yeah, because we covered talking about the.
Oh no, we got two, but anyway.
Yeah.
Sounds like how we do.
I guess the other question not quite covered so much is kind of links through to what you were saying about the formal painting considerations. The difference between that and I kind of want to get the narrative of the ballet because there's a whole story and and things going on, and of course paintings are these single moments. So I was always interested in how you dealing with that, because you want the narrative. The narrative is an inspiring part of it. It seems like, because you talked to me about the individual moves and how they play a role in the story, and then you've captured.
Yeah, I mean that's a very definite move, isn't it? It's all about trust, that one, that move, and I guess that but like you say, when I was watching it and I filmed it, and then you kind of slow it down so you can choose one picture that you want, and you kind of think, they're all just little stills, aren't they, put together? It's all just little present moments that are put together, which is what life is. And you, as a painter, have to just to select one of them. I mean, they put it all together and make a story. You've got to say something in just one image. And so it's quite important, isn't it? I guess the image that you choose has to be quite rich, really. And I think that's partly why working with live people and going in, it all feeds into it, rather than just selecting an image that you've not taken. I mean, like particularly this one, again, the blonde wig, it reminds me of Marilyn Monroe. So it's nice, and somebody said, oh, this one could be Vivienne Westwood with the corset, and when I was choosing that, I thought she could be in a nightclub, having a rave, which is like what my daughter likes to do, so it kind of, you try and choose images, don't you, that speak in lots of different ways to people. And somebody, when they came to the exhibition, thank you to everybody who came to the PV, he was saying, he found it quite sinister, this one, that he was looking at her in quite a sinister way, and so you do try to find a narrative, even if it's just in one image, that can say quite a bit. And
the colour, your colour work does a lot, doesn't it? The creating, just the colour alone creates different emotive effects. There's a clear kind of, passion and red and power, isn't it?
I think it was quite influenced by Jennifer Packer's colours, those. The oranges.
But works with the pose.
And I think I have a leaning towards pinks and oranges anyway.
I mean, if it was a cool tone, cool blues, it would have a completely different feel, wouldn't it?
It would. If I'd painted it in the colours of that one over there.
Completely different.
It would.
So the colour consideration.
And also, I was working in the dark. I hadn't seen the production of Casanova until after the exhibition. I went to see it at the theatre afterwards. And then you see the lights come on with the orange backlighting, and you think, oh yeah, it's like, it's quite theatrical lighting, really. But some of it's, it's good, isn't it, not always to know exactly what the colour's going to be, because then it leaves room for your imagination and how you want to interpret it.
Intuitive.
I think I do use colour intuitively. So when I start on my iPad drawings, say I did one of like this one, or there's one of her in the dance rehearsals, and she's doing this move where she kind of opens her arms, and it's that blue one, the third, and she opens her arms, and I just thought she had this maroon top on. I just thought she looked like Superwoman, and so I gave her these wings. But
Oh yes.
I think colour is so it's more than just colour, isn't it? It's quite emotive and it's quite personal, and you know it requires a response, and so I like colour.
Yeah, comes across so well.
But so that's a narrative in itself, isn't it? Colour, really.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at telling a story, you know, like some artists would want to set up a story going on in their painting, a portrait. There was one in the same pod as me when I did Portrait Artist of the Year, and he'd done a kind of very narrative drawing of his family, him and his family, for his submission. And then in the actual painting that he did of Zoe Ashton, he had her in this very dramatic pose, and she looked quite sinister. It almost imposed that on her, really, that narrative. I don't think I'm very good at that. I think that's probably why I went and worked in the life room, is I just respond to what's there.
Fantastic. So I guess, keep saying I guess, rather than guessing. The last question. What's next? Do you see any more future collaborations with dance or particular shows? You know, how do you feel about the direction of the next work as a series or as individual works?
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed doing the dance, and you know, it'd be nice to do some more. I'll have to kind of reflect on it, I think, the experience, and I think it's good to go out of your comfort zone and try and connect with other people and take the initiative and do that. And I've been just doing some drawings of portraits again recently and thinking, you know, I might do these on a different scale. But I think just whatever I do, I want it to be a challenge, really. I don't ever want to go into it and think, I know what I'm doing and this looks good and it'll sell, but I want to do something that will stretch me, really, and be a challenge. And I think that, I mean, I've been a teacher, and I think that working with people, I've really enjoyed that again, because you spend a lot of your time on your own when you're painting, which I like as well. It's a strange combination, but I've enjoyed working with people, so it'd be good to try and do that again.
That's great. Any questions?
I hope you've enjoyed listening.
Yes.
I haven't bored you. Do you want to give any feedback?
And thank you, Instagram Live.
Yeah.
If anybody watched, knows.
You can turn us off now.
I see some comments. But
Yeah. Can you read them afterwards?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We